Miksha Fenyu,
66-year-old writer, lawyer, Pest, District 8, Haransky Street 11. The artillery unit of about 80 soldiers stationed in the school building, or perhaps just a group of them, is being sent into action today, entirely without training. Down here in the basement corridor, they fired a few rounds from their submachine guns. The shelling and machine gun fire are relentless and unbearable. 10 minutes ago, the following scene unfolded: a knock at the door. Security forces. Identification, please. At Elvira's signal, I managed to hide in the dark corner of the beds. The inspection passed without them noticing me. If they had found me, it would have been the end. In the future, I won't hide. Instead, I'll try using my Franco ID card. Ria's heart is on the verge of bursting. And it has been, incessantly, for the past 10 months.
Lajos Nagy,
61-year-old writer, bookstore owner, Budapest, District 6. I went out to the workshop, bringing the tea with me. Someone, a woman, had taken on the task of boiling the water. Then we needed mugs and teaspoons. After some effort, I managed to find 2 mugs because ours had gotten mixed up with others in the general chaos. I washed the mugs at the tap, but was immediately scolded for making puddles. There were no spoons to be found. I brought the tea in the pot to the shelter where my wife was having breakfast in bed. I sat on the edge of the bed. I pulled out the tablecloth from under the bed. The bread was wrapped in it. The jar of jam was also under the bed, covered with paper. Since I didn't have string, I had tied the paper onto the jar with wire, which I had managed to find. The jar of crystal sugar was there as well. Instead of a spoon, we stirred the tea with my pocket knife. All of this had to be done in the dim light, bending and fumbling among scattered objects. As soon as I leaned down, someone immediately appeared between the rows of beds and almost demandingly shouted, "May I?" This shelter is truly an underground cavity. Just being here feels like being buried alive. 50 of us live in the shelter. One wall I'll call the courtyard side, and the other, let's say, the inner wall. The beds are arranged lengthwise against the inner wall, and sideways against the courtyard wall. We've hammered nails into the beams, and that's where the clothes hang. The entire cellar is damp and musty. It's cold. Most people are suffering from colds and coughing. There's been no electricity since Christmas. At first, we lit the place with candles, as we had plenty. Now, we're down to using hurricane lamps. But the kerosene is running low too. Occasionally, a leftover candle stub turns up. Some people are making lamps out of paraffin or stearin. I just heard a terrible explosion. Even Dome admits this one was a bomb. The house is shaking. The bombing is constant now. There are daring individuals who still venture out, covering great distances even in these conditions. Yesterday, a young man ducked into our gate. He was traveling from the area around Kaleti station to Buda. In the fall, I too ventured out during heavy bombing. I had errands to run. Policemen and air raid wardens stopped me everywhere, trying to herd me into buildings. I ignored them and kept going. Once, I was caught in an attack on Civ Street. At the alarm, I entered a large house. There, a frantic woman, the air raid warden, started giving instructions, directing strangers to stand here, wait there. I told her, "I've had enough of this. I'd rather go for a walk in the street." I left and entered another house, but it turned out to be a starred house. On June 14, 1944, the mayor of Budapest ordered that Jews move into designated houses marked with a yellow star by June 21. Out of 36,000 buildings in Budapest, 1,981 were designated as starred houses. This required the evacuation of 28,000 apartments, affecting nearly 200,000 people. The Jewish residents there couldn't all fit into the cellar and were standing around in the courtyard. They suggested a better building at the corner of Civ Street and Aradi Street, saying only about 10 people lived there. I went there instead. The attack lasted an hour. During that time, I sat in a small air raid cellar, barely larger than a room. This was on a Friday. On Sunday at noon, there was another attack. The house where I had sheltered on Friday was hit. The bomb destroyed an entire row of rooms, crashed into the cellar, and exploded there, in the air raid shelter. Everyone inside died. T came home earlier today, drunk again. He's loud, talking to everyone. He says that sooner or later, we'll all die, some in 2 days, others in a week. Just 10 minutes ago, a doctor was killed by a grenade on Andrassy Avenue. A small man from our building recently returned from digging graves in the nearby square. 50 corpses are lying there. They were brought from around the neighborhood, and their burial is scheduled for tomorrow. Most of the dead are men, though it's hard to determine their gender, as they are covered with paper. A new rule has been implemented. There's now a guard at the gate, 2 women at a time. Their job is to ensure that no strangers enter unnoticed, preventing thieves from sneaking into the apartments. It's 5 o'clock now. An hour and a half ago, Sanjay was standing outside the gate. A member of the Arrow Cross Party and a soldier caught a Jewish woman walking in the street without a star. They were taking her to a nearby Arrow Cross house. As they passed by our building, the Arrow Cross Party member asked Sanjay for a light and quietly inquired, "Brother, are there any Jews in this house? I'm afraid to think about our relatives." Gushi, my wife's nephew, was still alive at Christmas. He came to this house and received a little food. I had placed him in a Swiss-protected house, but he would still go out into the streets, wearing some kind of fantastical uniform with a rooster-feathered hat. One of our companions is setting off on a long journey to Damjanich Street. He's heard that there's a pharmacy there where you can get Seconal.
Budapest, District 7. Report from the Jewish Council overseeing the ghetto. 2 armed individuals, reportedly wearing armbands, accosted an elderly woman. They encouraged each other, saying she should be shot. One of the armed men then simply shot the old woman.